Stop for a second and notice how much of your life is made of words. From the moment you wake up, you are texting, joking, scrolling, saying names. Language is the invisible ocean you swim in, and you never see the water. So let's run a cruel experiment. Let's delete all of it. Every noun, every verb, every rule of grammar, even your own name. Your whole system of communication just dissolves into nothing. Now you are standing in a cold forest 100,000 years ago. Damp fog, the smell of wet leaves. Your tribe is beside you. And out of the trees steps a cave bare the size of a car. Your heart lurches. Adrenaline floods your muscles. Your hands grip a spear. Your friend is standing with his back to it. He has not seen it. You desperately want to scream, behind you, bear, run. But you can't. All your throat can produce is a raw, wordless shriek. And in that instant, a specific horror hits you. Total isolation. Without language, you are a biological robot, locked inside this one moment. You cannot describe yesterday. You cannot plan tomorrow. Your entire world shrinks to whatever is directly in front of your eyes. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in exactly this silence. Mute giants. They built shelters and shaped stone tools, but could not name a single thing. So how did scientists work out when we finally started to talk? It turns into a genuine detective story written in fossils. Part 1. The anatomy of silence. For a long time, people assumed speech simply appeared as the brain got bigger. But the fossils said the brain was only half the story. Researchers zoomed in on a tiny bone, the hyoid. It is a small, floating bone that anchors your tongue and your voice box. In a chimpanzee, the voice box sits very high in the throat. That lets a chimp drink and breathe at the same time. But it makes it physically impossible to shape clear vowels. And in our early ancestors, that whole region was built the same way. Their vocal tract simply could not produce the sounds of speech. If they had tried to talk, it would have come out as gurgles and coughs. Then researchers looked at something else, the spinal canal in the chest. Through it run the nerves that control the breathing muscles. Fine breath control is what lets you pause mid-exhale to form a sentence. In Homo erectus, 1.5 million years ago, that canal was too narrow. They breathed like animals, in simple bursts, no steady stream of words. Only much later, in late Neanderthals and in us, did the anatomy finally shift. A gene we now call FOXP2, tied to fine control of the mouth and throat, changed. The voice box dropped lower. The breathing nerves widened. For the first time, a human body was physically able to speak. But that raises the real question of this whole story. What was happening before the throat dropped and the brain caught up? How did mute ancestors coordinate survival in a frozen, silent world? Because it turns out, long before the first word, we already had a full network. We started talking with our hands. Part 2. The dance of hands. Watch yourself on an ordinary phone call. You pace the room, phone to your ear, and your hands go wild. You wave. You draw shapes in the air. You point at a wall that cannot see you. The person on the other end has no idea. Your rational mind knows this. And still you cannot stop the strange dance of your hands. That is not a random habit. It is a ghost. It is the ghost of our very first communication system. For a long time, people thought speech grew out of animal cries and grunts. Modern science broke that idea apart. Animal sounds come from deep, ancient parts of the brain that handle raw emotion. But conscious speech is run by the neocortex, the newest layer. And it grew in the exact region that first evolved to control the hands. Humanity's first social network was not the voice. It was a rich language of gesture. We learned to point at objects, to mimic their shapes, to act out whole scenes. Long before our vocal cords could produce a single clean sound. So how did scientists prove this deep link between the hand and language? The clue appeared by accident, in Parma, Italy, in the 1990s. A neuroscientist named Giacomo Rizzolatti was studying the brains of macaques, and he stumbled onto something strange: mirror neurons. These cells fired when the monkey grabbed a piece of food, but they also fired when the monkey merely watched a researcher do it. These cells sat in a region labeled F5. In humans, that same region became Broca's area, our main speech center. The overlap between gesture control and speech control was total. When you watch someone else's gesture, your brain does not just passively look. It quietly runs the same action inside your own motor cortex. We understand gestures because our bodies literally rehearse them. Now picture a hunting party 100,000 years ago, hidden in the grass. The savannah is dead silent, and silence is survival. One careless shout, and the deer is gone, and everyone goes hungry. So the hunters used a rich system of signs. A flick of the fingers. The group knows there are 3 antelope ahead. A turn of the wrist. A hunter knows to circle around from the left. A closed fist. Freeze. They coordinated complex plans with hands and faces alone. A lift of the brows. Narrowed eyes. Bared teeth. Those facial signals are still universal, across every human on the planet. But sign language had one fatal flaw. It is useless in the dark. You cannot gesture with your hands full of a stone axe, or meat, or a baby. And to be understood, you have to keep your eyes locked on the other person. The moment someone looked away, the connection broke. So evolution took its next clever step. It began moving the gestures from the hands onto the lips and tongue. It is called the mouth gesture idea. The mouth started to unconsciously copy what the fingers were doing. Point the hand inward, and the lips and tongue tighten into the first proto-sounds. But before this fused into real words, we needed one more thing. We needed a way to bind many voices into one. And the bridge from silent gesture to speech was not grammar. It was music. Part 3. Music before words. Think about how your body reacts to a heavy, driving beat. A deep bass drops, and your foot starts tapping on its own. Your head nods. Your pulse locks onto the tempo. A shiver runs up your spine. Why does music have this almost physical power over us? Because music is not just art. It is our oldest, first language. Before we could say, "I love you," or "careful," a cliff, humanity learned to sing. In the 2000s, archaeologist Stephen Mithen proposed something bold. Our ancestors had a proto-language he nicknamed with an odd word, hmmmm. It stood for holistic, manipulative, multimodal, musical, and mimetic. In plain terms, our ancestors communicated by singing. Their first sounds were not words with fixed meanings. They were melody, pitch, and rhythm, carrying pure emotion. A rising tone warned of danger. A soft one meant tenderness. Now picture a cold night by a fire in the Pleistocene. Darkness, wind, predators moving in the brush, 30 frightened people. Their nervous systems are flooded with stress. How do you calm them? You cannot give a lecture on safety. There are no words yet. But one elder begins a long, low, droning note. A second joins. A third. Soon the whole group vibrates on one pitch. And here is a real, measured fact. Singing together syncs people's heartbeats. 30 hearts begin to beat as one. The brain floods with oxytocin and endorphins. Fear loosens its grip. They physically start to feel like a single, larger organism. Rhythm became the glue that held a society together. Brain scans back this up. The regions for music and for language overlap almost entirely. Broca's area lights up not just for speech, but for musical rhythm too. When you hear someone talk, your brain reads the melody first and the meaning second. A living fossil of this is baby talk. When a mother coos at an infant, the words carry no information at all. She is using pure sing-song rhythm to calm the baby's fear centers. It is the proto-language, still running, right in front of us. Part 4. The cheat code. Music bound our emotions together. But as life grew complex, emotion was not enough. We needed to pass on cold, exact data. How to shape flint, where the roots grow. We needed a tool to outsource experience across time and space. And that evolutionary cheat code was symbolic speech. Before language, learning in the wild was deadly. To learn that red berries are poison, someone had to eat them and die in front of you. The price of every lesson was a human life. Speech erased that cost. Now an elder just said, "Don't eat the red berries." A critical file was copied into young minds, without a single drop of blood. Every other species has just one way to pass on survival: the genetic code. For a tiger to learn to fear snakes takes thousands of generations of death. Genetic evolution is written slowly, in blood, and in millions of years. Language gave us a second channel: culture, a high-speed cable into the future. We became the only species that does not start from zero each generation. A child begins where their grandparents left off. Scientists even tested this with an experiment in making stone tools. Some groups learned by silently watching, some by gesture. One group could use speech. Speech did not just teach faster. It cut the errors almost to zero. Without language, complex technology would decay and vanish within 2 generations. But the most astonishing power of speech was stranger still. It let us talk about things that do not physically exist. We learned to lie, to tell stories, to believe in river spirits and shared myths. And that let us unite not 30 tribesmen, but millions of total strangers. Under one flag, one law, one idea, we built an empire out of words. Hashtag Part 5, Why We Still Mumble. But our ancient biology never left. Beneath the words, an older modem still runs. Look at a short text on your phone, maybe a single word, with a cold, flat full stop. Or the line that freezes the blood. We need to talk. It is just a few pixels. No sound, no face, no real threat. And yet your body reacts instantly. Your heart skips. Your shoulders tighten. Your brain frantically starts filling in a hidden meaning that may not be there. Why does a bit of text on glass cause so much stress? Because our civilization of words is fighting our ancient wiring. Late last century, researchers around Albert Morabian described a striking split. Words carry only about 7% of the message. Another 38% rides on tone, pitch, and timbre of the voice. And the remaining 55% is body language. Face, gesture, posture. Linguists argue about the exact numbers. The deeper truth holds. For millions of years, we read the melody of a voice, not the meaning of words. So when you read a bare text, your brain runs 3D emotion software on a flat terminal. It is starving for data, and to fill the gap, it assumes the worst. We need those missing signals so badly that we invented a new digital substitute: the emoji. Think how absurd it looks. A serious adult sends a client a tiny yellow smiley face. But it is not childish. It is ancient biology clawing tone back into flat letters. A little smiley at the end of a sentence is not just a picture. It is the digital version of a warm, relaxed grunt, a signal to the tribe. It means, it's fine, I'm not attacking, we are safe. We are still talking like Pleistocene apes at a fire, just through pixels now. Beneath the thin crust of the neocortex, that primal modem is still humming. When you talk to someone in person, your gut reads their tone first. Long before the thinking brain has decoded what the words even mean. If the tone is sharp or cold, your body shifts to defense, however polite the words. We do not trust words. We trust tone, because words are easy to fake. But the tiny, involuntary flickers in a voice are almost impossible to fake. For our brains, speech is still that same musical proto-language. And here is the great paradox and the great victory of our species. Our precise, symbolic speech is a thin layer over millions of years of grunts and gestures. But that fragile layer turned us into the masters of this planet. We did not become human when we wrote perfect dictionaries. We became human when we used our old grunting so well that we could agree. Agree to believe in invisible things. Laws, money, nations, human rights. All of them shared myths, born from sounds we made around a fire. So next time a dry text makes you anxious, or the right words won't come, breathe. Remember that we are all just frightened Pleistocene primates, coordinating in the dark. Sometimes a warm hand on a shoulder says more than a terabyte of perfect words. Our oldest wireless system still works. We became human when we learned to agree. And we are still doing it every single day.